One of my biggest influences growing up was the Star Wars franchise. I must have watched the original trilogy upwards of 200 times before my 18th birthday. It is, as I've mentioned on multiple occasions, the main reason why my English is somewhat decent, with me being Portuguese and all. Now, my favorite thing about Star Wars wasn't really the Jedi or lightsaber battles, even though I also like those quite a bit. No, what really got me going was the space combat, the way a ragtag group of X-Wings piloted by Rebel forces took on the Death Star, with a little help from my favorite character, Han Solo the Scoundrel. I always liked the fantasy of having a spaceship and engaging in smuggling runs across the galaxy, not being bound by the moral code of the hero archetype doing good deeds for everyone you come across in hopes of saving the universe. I'm more about walking a morally gray line where if I feel like someone deserves to die, I take them out, and if someone deserves my help, I'll help them out for the right price. The Outer Worlds is one of the few games that allowed me to roleplay that fantasy with a lot of humor in the mix and quite a bit of freedom to choose how I wish to tackle each situation. When discussing this title, it will be pretty much inevitable to mention Fallout, considering it comes from the original creators of Fallout and the developers of Fallout New Vegas. Hell, they put this information in the reveal trailer of the game, essentially inviting such comparisons, so I don't want to hear any complaints when I bring up Fallout. Now, I understand I'm extremely late with releasing this video. The people in charge of PR for Private Division were kind enough to send me a copy on release day, but September and October were utterly ridiculous with the amount of games that were released. And this being essentially a one-man operation, there's a limit to how much I can play and stream while still being a father to my 2 children who barely even see me anymore. But anyway, I like The Outer Worlds enough that I wanted to make a video about it, even if YouTube won't deem it timely. So I'm counting on you guys to hit that like button to prevent this video from being destroyed by the algorithm. So what is The Outer Worlds all about? It's a sci-fi first-person shooter RPG with a ridiculous amount of options to build out your character, a cast of companions to aid you in your adventure, and a lot of dialogue options and choices to make along the way. And choice is the key word here. You can actually level up dialogue skills and talk your way out of most situations, or you can level up stealth skills and sneak and lockpick your way through the game. Or if you prefer a more straightforward approach, you can murder your way through the game. And you can do all of this as a good guy, a bad guy, or anything in between. Think of this title as a mix between Fallout and Mass Effect, and it is right up my alley. Now, it is important to mention that in order to avoid the trappings of Fallout 4 and Mass Effect Andromeda, Obsidian chose to make their title much smaller in scope. You don't have a massive open world. You do travel between different planets on your spaceship, but each planet can be boiled down to a few key areas you'll be able to visit, and while some of those areas are significant in terms of size, they definitely aren't modern-day open world levels of big. This isn't the type of game where they give you a massive checklist of tasks to complete. It's a more contained experience. In fact, I believe if you beeline the main storyline, you should be able to finish the main quest pretty quick, like 10 hours, maybe less. And if you're the type of player that usually plays like that, I'm not sure I would recommend this game, at least not at full price. I want you to understand, I feel like there's plenty of content for players to enjoy, but a lot of that content is not essential to finishing the main quest. I do believe, however, it will significantly impact the ending you will get. Basically, this is the kind of game where a lot of value comes from you exploring your companion quests as well as side quests you come across as you visit each of the world's hubs. Most of the quests are very well crafted and don't really feel like chores, each of them adding to the experience and allowing you to roleplay your character in non-linear ways. But before we go any further into gameplay specifics, let's go ahead and tackle visuals and sound. Now, I played the game on a PlayStation 4 Pro, and in terms of visuals, I think the game looks pretty good. I love the art style, I like the animations, the special effects are alright, and I particularly like the ragdoll physics whenever you stun someone or they die. I do wish there was a little more variety to the character faces, especially considering how much time you can spend in dialogue with NPCs. I don't know why they ended up moving away from the more exaggerated facial features we see in the first trailer in favor of a more grounded look, but at the end of the day, it's not something that kept me from enjoying the game. In terms of performance, on my PlayStation 4 Pro, the game ran at 30 FPS most of the time. I feel like there's some room for improvement there, particularly because there were a couple of occasions where I felt the performance was negatively impacting my aim, but this shouldn't really be an issue on the PC version with mouse and keyboard. Now, in terms of sounds, everything sounded fine. The gun sounds, the walking sounds, everything in the game. The soundtrack itself is very minimal, you barely notice it's there, but it does contribute to the overall immersion. And as for the voice acting, it's friggin' excellent. It's also greatly helped by the fantastic writing, like you can tell the voice actors had a lot of good material to work with.
Normally, reviving someone after so long leads to some quite horrifying results. It's called explosive cell death, but it's really more of a liquefaction. Something wrong? Oh, yes, well, not to worry. I've pumped your body full of a special concoction I devised to keep you from dying so horrifically. Hopefully at all, but I guess we'll see, yes?
And this shows in their delivery. Every dialogue felt authentic, and they really go above and beyond with some of the conversations you can have. You're going to be playing as a silent protagonist, however, which I understand is both a positive for some players and a negative for others. Personally, I like voice protagonists, but it wasn't something I absolutely needed to be immersed in the game. Now that we got visuals and sound out of the way, let me set the stage and tell you about the plot. Naturally, as with all of my videos, there won't be any spoilers, just a taste of the opening minutes so you can get an idea of what to expect from the story. Your character is a colonist who was placed in suspended animation and sent to Halcyon. However, something went wrong and you were awakened decades later by a mad scientist who tells you he needs your help to save the other colonists in your ship who are still in suspended animation. He quickly sends you off to Terra 2 with your first set of tasks, at which point you actually begin to take control of your adventure. The game is very quick to put a very important decision in your hands, the kind of decision that decides the fate between two factions in the starting planet, and the kind of decision that will have you scratching your head before you pull the trigger. After that, you'll gain access to a ship and you'll be able to navigate through the colony and start making your way through Halcyon. On a personal note, I wasn't really a big fan of having the lives of all the other colonists hanging over my head from the get-go. I kind of wish the protagonist's background was a little more open. But I understand you need to have some kind of a plot device to establish your character's moral compass, and at the end of the day, you're still free to ignore your responsibilities to your fellow colonists and pursue other paths. Okay, Rakan, everything sounds good so far, but it's about time you give me the lowdown on the gameplay. How does it feel? Alright, this game plays very much like a first-person shooter, and while I wouldn't say the gunplay is on the level of something like Destiny, it's still pretty good. You have a decent array of guns at your disposal, from pistols to plasma rifles to shock flamethrowers, and some more exotic things in the science weapons department. There's also melee alternatives if you'd rather go that route, though I am disappointed there aren't any shields, particularly when there's a skill that improves your blocking, like you can block certain attacks with your melee weapon. There's also a system in place called tactical time dilation, which is explained in-game as a side effect of your long stretch and suspended animation and is essentially their version of VATS. Except it's way better. When you activate tactical time dilation, or TTD for short, time slows down significantly, allowing you to analyze your opponents and decide your next move. However, instead of allowing you to select different body parts and give you a percentage chance of hitting your target, tactical time dilation lets you just aim and shoot, and depending on the body parts you hit and the weapon you are using, you might inflict different debuffs on your enemies. Shooting something in the face with a plasma rifle during TTD will blind them. Shooting them in the legs will cripple them. Shooting them in the chest will stagger them. And there's a few other ailments you can apply with different guns or melee weapons. Taking actions like shooting, moving, or running will cause TTD to end sooner, whereas standing still, just looking around, will consume it slower. Tactical time dilation is a gauge below your health, which replenishes automatically over time. There are also skills that increase how fast you can recover TTD or how much of it is available. As we talk about combat mechanics, it's important to mention that in the Outer Worlds, you don't have to go at it alone. As you play the game, you'll unlock companions you can take with you on adventures, and I actually focused my character build around taking advantage of your companions and found that to be a very enjoyable playstyle. Each companion has a unique special attack you can order them to use, and their own gear you can customize, providing you with different playstyles. Optimizing the combination of your character skills, tactical time dilation, your companion skills, and all the gear available in the game provides a lot of options on how to tackle combat. And the gear itself can also be upgraded and modified to better suit your needs. There's a lot of variety when it comes to optimizing your loadout. I do wish the upgrade system would vary based on your character level as opposed to the number of upgrades performed. You see, the way the game works is each weapon has a level, just like your character, and you can level up the weapons you really like to continue using them. But the cost increases with each upgrade, so it's not sustainable to upgrade a level 5 weapon to like level 15. It just costs too much currency, so the game essentially forces you to replace your current weapons with other higher level weapons, and upgrading can be a delicate balancing act, particularly if you get attached to a specific weapon. But moving on from combat, there's plenty of ways to go through the game. As I mentioned earlier, you can play your character in a myriad of different ways. You can use stealth to bypass enemies or get the drop on them. You can use lockpicking to steal key items from chests or open doors that allow you to bypass certain enemies or gain entrance to secret rooms with loot. You can also use dialogue as a way to convince NPCs to do things for you. For instance, an NPC might claim they'll help you, but only if you pay them or do some sort of task for them. Having dialogue skills might actually allow you to lie, persuade, or intimidate them into helping you. And the cool thing about the dialogue choices is that there are so many options based around the skills your character has. For instance, if your character has the engineering skill, it will come into play in certain dialogues as well as when you are handling machinery. If you have medical skills, you might be able to heal NPCs. Science skills, you might be able to discuss new outcomes with scientists. And naturally, there's still intimidation, persuasion, and lies. I personally went deep into intimidation. There's nothing better than going into the office responsible for impounding your ship and calling the guy in charge a sprat fuck, and that actually being an acceptable resolution for the situation. There's a lot of different ways to tackle each of the different challenges present in the game, and I greatly enjoyed the roleplay possibilities, because not only they allowed me to play my character just like I wanted in most situations, but also gave me a glimpse of the replayability potential. The game gives you multiple opportunities to change your allegiances throughout your adventure, all the way to the very end. And I like that I never really felt like I was locked into being a good or a bad guy because of my previous decisions. And most of the major decisions you've made throughout your adventure have an impact on the future of Alcyon. This goes for the factions you interacted with throughout the game as well as your companions. It was interesting to experience both my failures and triumphs. You see, the outcome of my playthrough wasn't the best possible future for the colony, but it was a step in the right direction, and it made me want to go back and play through it again, if it wasn't for the fact that my backlog is so friggin' huge right now. The Outer Worlds is another one of those games that shows us there's still developers out there that are passionate about putting out a real gamer's game instead of focusing on engagement and monetization. They don't artificially extend the length of the game with menial tasks, they don't sell you a season pass, and there's no nonsensical social features. It's just an old school video game you can load up and play. Having said this, not everything was sunshine and rainbows. One of the biggest downsides of this game is most definitely its loading screens, and while gamers running the game on their SSDs will probably have it easier, there's no denying that there are a lot of loading screens throughout your experience, particularly when you take on interplanetary quests where you'll need to load into your ship, travel to a different location, and then load into the new location, and you better hope you pick the right companions on the way out, otherwise you're looking at 2 more loading screens just to fix your party. I feel like changing your party could also do with a little improvement, like maybe use a radio to call out a different companion and then have an in-game timer to represent the travel time from your ship to your current location. Basically, I wanted to play around with the different companions available to you, but I ended up not doing it because I didn't feel like going back to the ship every time to swap them around. And finally, the difficulty. Now, I played on hard because Supernova just felt like it was going to add a certain degree of hassle I wasn't really looking forward to dealing with on a first playthrough, although I'm definitely considering it now for a future run, and even though I struggle a little at the start as I was grasping the combat mechanics, I eventually just started mowing enemies down without any real problems. However, when I got to the final boss, I was in for a rude awakening. I don't want to get into too many details to avoid spoilers, but basically let's just say I was forced to reload an earlier save, completely changed my loadout and party members, and even then I had to employ very specific tactics, and the fight ended with both my companions down and my own character at like 30% health after consuming over 15 healing items. I don't necessarily have an issue with a hard encounter. My issue was more so the fact that everything up until that point had been considerably easier, and the sudden spike in difficulty felt completely out of place. But at the end of the day, none of these complaints would prevent me from recommending The Outer Worlds. I had a blast playing through this game, and I hope it is successful because I want to see more titles like this coming out of Obsidian. BioWare is no longer capable of delivering a product that lives up to the standards of the original Mass Effect trilogy or Dragon Age Origins. Whether this is because EA is breathing down their necks or their leadership is stuck in a loop of trying to figure out the best way to transform a single-player game into a live service, essentially butchering their team's greatest assets, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they are no longer a viable choice for anyone wanting to play a single-player story-driven RPG. Bethesda, on the other hand, was never really very competent in their Fallout games. I always hear great stories about how amazing the games were, but now that I have some perspective, those games weren't good. They became good because their passionate modding communities fixed them. And this has become painfully apparent with Fallout 76, which is still a burning dumpster fire 1 year after release. And instead of working with their community who are standing next to this smelly, burning dumpster doing their best to put the fire out with fire extinguishers, Bethesda just keeps dropping napalm into it, burning both their product and the community along with it. The Outer Worlds was able to combine the best aspects of Fallout with the best aspects of Mass Effect and deliver a unique experience that shouldn't be missed by anyone who likes this genre. In the current climate of the gaming industry, I find it is particularly important to celebrate titles like this, which give us a glimmer of hope that the future of gaming isn't always online or in some fracking cloud server chock full of predatory microtransactions and meaningless social features as an excuse to get into your wallet and keep you engaged. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe with the bell notifications on to receive more content from me. Comments and feedback are always welcome in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.